optional share or additional licenses of Mastermind. Our presenter today, of course, Rob Macalack, President, Developer of Mastermind. So I will let him go ahead and get going. Take it away, Rob.
All right. Thank you, Carnegie, and welcome everybody once again to our monthly Mastermind Fiesta. We are, of course, very happy to share ideas with you and talk about how you can better use Mastermind to essentially to make your GoldMine pay off for you better. And would love to have more suggestions from you about how we can do this, and love having your active participation in our monthly webinars as well. Great to see so many people on here right now. Just a quick reminder, our monthly end user session is really about helping you get more value from Mastermind, your combination of GoldMine and Mastermind, and specifically to give you ideas about creative ways to use your GoldMine data, to activate it, so to speak, to do your job better and make your business work better. And specifically, what I want to do is teach you techniques that help you present data better out of GoldMine. So in other words, we're providing sort of a low level of technical training here, but really more broadly to make you aware of the resources that you have available to you.
Yeah, so you know what, just by way of introducing, I was just saying we're here to tell you or help you, learn what to do, how to do it, and how to get help doing it with your Mastermind and GoldMine, and let's move right on in. So here's our agenda for today. What I wanted to talk about is sharing Mastermind. Why is it, and we actually get this question from people who are single, only users of Mastermind within their organization. Why should we make Mastermind available to other users? Of course, we have our usual sort of sales story about why it is that Mastermind would be better, is better shared than just held by one person. Some of that's going to be incorporated into what we're talking about today. I will talk about why sharing Mastermind, how actually to share reports using Mastermind, so a little more technical, and then we're actually going to get even further deep on the technical thing in talking about how to personalize a particular report for a particular user so that they can update their, basically use their own report without having to get the intervention of other people to get information, and yet have it isolate on only information that's useful to them. I will also talk about how this relates to the Mastermind license types, create, share, and master, and then at the end we'll have a little giveaway of a half-hour session with Mastermind, as always. So hope you all win, but really only one of you will. So that's our agenda. So let's jump right in here. So, sorry, Carnegie?
That was a little harsh.
A little harsh? Oh, okay. I know. That's just my way.
Yes.
Those of you who don't win, of course, please come back next month and maybe work with us other ways as well. So if you've just got a single Mastermind user, what are the limitations that you face? Well, you basically, if you want to share Mastermind reports, you have to do it kind of the old-fashioned Crystal Reports way, or the old-fashioned way, where you're going to print it out, or you're going to give somebody just a sort of a static report that only does the one thing that it does, and usually it's either printed out or people do a snapshot and they send it around, or send it by email to people, and it's just going to work for them one time. It's not bad. I mean, snapshots are nice for static kinds of information that aren't going to change over time. But it is a clumsy activity to have one person generate reports and send them around. When I say clumsy, it's expensive to have to waste staff time doing that. What's worse is the reports that people get, as I say, they're just snapshots. The user can't change parameters within the report. They can't rearrange the fields. They can't drill down for further information. They can't actually use the report. I mean, sort of getting beyond just the reporting idea, they can't actually use the report interactively with GoldMine to make the important next steps happen, the activity that's supposed to be generated by, why am I looking at this report in the first place? Well, maybe it's accounts that need to be called. Well, if I can just drill right through to the records in GoldMine, I can do that work much more efficiently than if you just gave me a list and then I have to hand type in the names to look them up and work them. That's only one example of not getting the dynamic aspect of them. And the effect of that is you wind up with your managers and executives who are typically not the frontline Mastermind users. Sometimes they are in smaller companies, but in the larger ones, it's the executives who typically have the questions, who want a dashboard, who want information on a regular basis, but who at the same time sort of stand back at arm's length and say, or someone says for them, oh, well, that person, they need to be handed information. They can't be relied upon to, they can't be expected to, open a report and look at it. Somebody needs to, give it to them on a silver platter. And the truth is, executives and managers increasingly are not just, to use a stereotype, old people who are unable to work around computers. Increasingly, they are people who are savvy and want to be interactive with their GoldMine, and maybe not just GoldMine, but want to be interactive with what's actually happening in the company. And this is the way to involve them and give them the ability to ask their own questions and get them answered. At the other level, at the sort of the lower level, you typically want people who are customer-facing, who are sort of the lower-level workers, to also be able to self-manage, to know, to have dynamic reports that tell them on a moment-to-moment basis, who are you falling behind on? Where are the leads that you were supposed to follow up on and haven't gotten to? If they have the ability to actually use Mastermind, they can pretty easily be set up to do this stuff. They don't need to be generating their own reports hour after hour. That's not how it works with Mastermind. Typically, you have a small handful of people who actually generate reports at will, but the rest of your users are people who could better self-manage if they just simply had better information in front of them in the form of Mastermind reports that simply refresh, that when they open, or that the user can repeatedly refresh, and every time they refresh it, that means current information from GoldMine, so they're following up. It's like the best way I think typically that I put it is we're putting Excel functionality inside of GoldMine. We're not making it just easy to pass information back and forth between the two. You're actually making the Excel data or the GoldMine data available in Excel on an ongoing dynamic basis, which is very powerful, especially when it comes down to actually getting people to actually self-manage a little bit, so that they can deliver, finished results, know all along the way how they're doing, and adjust their activity accordingly. Another thing, if you've just got single Mastermind user, that person is isolated. They're not working with other users and getting good ideas about how to actively dig into the GoldMine data and make more happen for the whole company. One user is great. 2 users is almost twice as good. 3 or 4 likewise. And the more users, of course, it's going to tail off after a little bit. But people give each other great ideas, and frankly, there's an awful lot that you can do actively with your GoldMine data. And sometimes it's just not practical to expect one user to do all the reporting for everybody, in addition to actively going around and passing the reports around, and then the data management aspects of it, which are ongoing and can be very large working with GoldMine. Essentially, where I'm going to go down to here is to say, after you have the first seat of Mastermind, all the rest of the seats are pretty inexpensive. You might as well take advantage of the fact that you already have the investment at the top level with Mastermind. Oh, I did want to mention also in here, got these a little out of order, but users leave. If your Mastermind users leaves the company, and sadly I've seen this happen a few times, we don't find out until annual maintenance comes around, and we talk to them, and oh, that person left, and we don't really know how Mastermind works. We've been sitting here for 6 months and not getting any value. We thought what they did was great, but no one bothered to call up and get the license transferred over, and nobody else was using it. So there you go. This part I'm just going to really talk in summary. So as I just mentioned, executives want dashboards. Managers should be able to answer their own questions, ask and answer them, and address the information directly. This is one I haven't mentioned. At the office level, in every organization, it seems, and I have encountered a lot of them in 15 years just of doing Mastermind, in every organization, Microsoft Excel is the sort of universal pass-around medium for lists, for segments out of databases, for moving information between vendors, all different sorts of things, and this is usually done in a very manual way. And of course, GoldMine does give you the ability to do a one-way export of information, some information. It's not very easy to do unless you, well, it's not very easy to do if you want anything other than a few fields every time, the same ones, to export information out into Excel, which you will then do something with, but then has to be manually worked back into GoldMine once that passing around has happened, or it doesn't get manually, it doesn't get manually entered back in. It just sort of is wasted effort after a while. Using Mastermind, really, if you think about it in terms of the tool set that Mastermind provides, it's more than just making a report that somebody looks at. It really is interacting with the data. I don't think I need to go on about that too much more. I already talked about salespeople self-monitoring and other people self-monitoring, and really making Mastermind available to other kinds of users within the organization. If you keep on tracking activity with customers after they are customers, then your customer service people ought to have Mastermind because they need to track their activity as well. Likewise with collections afterwards, with production, whatever when I say production, we're talking about a branch almost of customer service as far as the database is concerned. Really think of Mastermind as a tool set, not just a one-way report writer. Okay, so back to the agenda. I talked about why we want to be able to share reports. Let's get into actually how you share reports with Mastermind and how to personalize reports, and then we'll come back and wrap it up with some other activities here. So let's get to our GoldMine here. There we are. Okay, so here's the usual demo database of Mastermind. Now, shared reports. Shared reports, as I mentioned before, are very easy to access by licensed users. It's just simply a matter of you may give them a selection. Your sales manager might have a menu like this in GoldMine that's got 5 standard reports in it. They are the same reports in that they show the same type of information from time to time, but they are not the same in that the information itself is static. So the sales manager needs to be able to pop open a report, and the work that it took to get there is not very much, so you don't have to train the sales manager to do very much to actually see the information. It refreshes while it's opening. So this is basically GoldMine inside of Excel. It's a table of GoldMine data inside of Excel. And a sales manager looking at this, I just did a couple of really sort of sketchy examples here. This is a prior month report that shows how many completed calls did each person have from week to week in this case in August 2014. And when I'm ready to look at September and I'm the sales manager, a little bit of interaction to choose which month I'm looking at is not too much really to ask, so that I understand what I've got. And then beyond that, the interaction back with GoldMine, of course. If you just printed this on a piece of paper or sent them a snapshot, all they have is the numbers. But if you give them a little bit of trust and say, well, you know what, when you want to know, well, who are the 5 people that Tina called in that week? They can double-click. They can even go through right to the GoldMine record, or many of you don't know this, there's actually a button back here on the Mastermind drill-down menu or a ribbon here that will pop up that specific activity inside of GoldMine, so you can actually see the individual activity, or you can see the person that activity is attached to. If you're a manager of people or even a manager of prospects, having that ability to interact back to GoldMine live is a real value to you. So it's silly to cut off your Mastermind licenses at just one person for that reason. Okay, so how to share reports. So let's say this is a report that I want to that I've created, and I want to share it with other GoldMine users. Now, the sort of built-in easy way to do this, well, I'll back up a little bit. The real built-in easy way to do this is to just simply go File and Save As, and save this report to some network location. Doesn't matter where you save Mastermind reports to. They are each sort of a self-contained unit that still needs to be opened up through Mastermind so that the user can actually, well, see it. So it still needs to be opened up through by a licensed Mastermind user, but it's very pass-aroundable. It's very mobile. It can be attached to an email and sent to somebody else who has a Mastermind license, and they can open it up. Most commonly what happens is you choose a sensible network location. I don't have a network location available to me in this environment, but you know how that works. You choose a network location, you save the report, and then you either send an email to your colleague saying, I saved that report in that location, go find it, and then that colleague can go and find it by within their GoldMine, launching Mastermind. And now it's actually interesting. I've talked with people lately and they don't know this. You can go to the launch dialog, click open, and navigate to that location that you were told that report was in. So this navigation is just a regular Windows navigation here. So that's one possibility. Another possibility is, and which I think is a better idea, is as an organization, figure out what is the appropriate way to organize your shared Mastermind reports within a folder tree on your network. So again, I've just got I don't have a network situation here, but I do have certainly a folder tree, and now mine looks a little bit complicated here because I've got them saved in 3 different locations. But in most of your cases, and most of the end user cases that I see, you've got a fairly simple tree. It shows, maybe your local C drive and your My Documents folder, and then you've got some Mastermind reports within that. Sometimes that's all you've got. But with this launch dialog, it's actually possible to navigate around. So I can, for example, go here and say, well, I'm going to right-click on the My Documents folder and have it show all the subfolders, just in case someone saved a report out here to some other location. It's not the best example, but saved a Mastermind report out to some other location, and I know to go and get it. If I open it up, that location then becomes part of my tree, and as a user, I've effectively had that report shared to me verbally, but I can still open it and find it. Now, the next level that I was talking about was actually having reports shared to your GoldMine taskbar. So, and in that scenario, the user would have a taskbar that looks like this to actually transmit a report to somebody. In other words, and again, it's not just a one-time transmittal. It's actually setting them up with a repeatable Mastermind report that refreshes while they open it. So you're really sharing the report itself. For that, on the Mastermind ribbon, there's this button called Share Report. So what Share Report does is allow you to take whatever report you're on. Typically, you'd be a create user. You could actually be a share user and just share this, modify it, and share this report with other users as well. The same dialog is there. And what this does is allow you to pick from all of your GoldMine users and pick a user whose taskbar you want this to appear on. You can choose which taskbar within their existing taskbars you want to put it on. So in this case, we've got another user, Nancy. I want to take this report, put it on there. Forecasting sales may not be the best example, but in fact, if it's not, I could add a new taskbar for them, create a new one. You want to be a little careful about proliferating new taskbars for other users, but you could do that. And then once you choose what taskbar it's going to go on, you can name the report, and you would say, typically you would say, resave and link. Now your choices here are link only or resave and link. Link only means we're not going to save this workbook again. We're fine with where it is. It already exists, let's say, in a shared network folder. But oftentimes you actually want to resave a different version of it. It's the same workbook, or well, it would be a copy of the same workbook, but because you're putting it out there for them, in the future you may mess around with your own taskbar. You may delete reports or move them to different locations, whatever. But you want this person to always find that report in the same location. Well, for that purpose, hit resave and link, so that you're saving the saving the workbook. Now, if you try to do this on your own, this will warn you if you try to save it on your own local hard drive, which obviously in your cases you would have a network that you were saving it to. I'm going to just go ahead and say yes so I can go through the dialogue. Whoops, I think I want to do that a slightly different way here. So back to here and share report, resave and link. I'm going to say no, so I'm actually going to save it to a new location. So this would allow me to then go, navigate to the network location that I wanted to put it in for them. My advice is for different users, have different subfolders of the network Mastermind reports folder so that they can find their own. That also, by the way, allows you to do things like set up security so that certain users are only able to get into their own network folder, only see reports that you create for them. So there are a lot of levels of security that you can add if you're doing that sort of thing. Not to mention it's just easier if you sort out your reports between who they belong to because they're dynamic. Because when somebody opens up a Mastermind report, if they make changes to it and then save those changes, and you have multiple people using that same report, you're going to see those. You're going to see it altered instead of the way you left it. That may all sound really obvious, but sometimes people are kind of caught thinking of reporting in the more historical way, where a report is just simply a thing that looks one way and never changes. Okay, so that's the sort of save as that's built into sharing. Now, sometimes you don't want to be sharing a live real report like this. I understand that. When you put that on somebody else's taskbar, in order for them to see it, they have to pop it open. Now, it's not too hard for them to know that the report is available to them the first time, especially if you send them an email that says, I put a report on your taskbar and here's what it does, or you call them or point it out to them, whatever. Once that is on their taskbar, their work is, once they know that it's there, their work as far as getting to that report is done, and your work in giving it to them is done. So we sort of break the chain of always having to go back to, Joe the report writer, to make and remake the same report over and over again. That's just a waste of everybody's time. However, that said, as I started to go to, you sometimes do want to send a snapshot. So here's how the snapshot works. Now, a snapshot is another workbook. It's going to be an Excel workbook. Now, there's actually two kinds of snapshot. One is a new sheet in the same workbook where all you're trying to do is make a quick archive of this pivot table so it doesn't refresh again. That's not the kind I'm talking about. I'm talking about a new archive workbook. When I say archive workbook, it's an Excel, XLS or XLSX file that will be essentially a picture of this sheet. So it's this sheet inside of another workbook with no more refreshing, no drop-downs, no ability to move fields around. It's just a static picture. And so when you create that, what you've done basically is just make a flat Excel sheet. Now, it still is formatted the same way, and you can do this, by the way, with pivot tables as well as with drill-down sheets, either way. And when you do it, you have then created what people sort of, without Mastermind, expect Excel to look like, which is a flat sheet that you can just attach to an email, send it outside the company. Anybody who even doesn't have Mastermind can open it up and work with it. So there's that. So those are the two most typical kinds of sharing. Now, of the ones that you do share, and this is where I want to get into a little deeper level of personalizing reports. And before I do, actually, Carnegie, I'm going to give you a chance if there's a question or anything that we need to cover.
Actually, I was going to bring something up. I know for all of our Mastermind users that have a few licenses out there or unlimited licenses, there's a way to share a report globally, so you're not having to go to each individual person and share the report. I wanted to see if you wanted to show that, putting to the global taskbar.
Okay, yes, thank you. So, and correct me if I'm wrong, and if what I'm talking about is not responsive to that. But so when you do a share, I chose, when I went to Nancy here, I chose to go to the forecasting, forecasted sales and so on. If you go to the global taskbar, there's really only one global taskbar. And if you put a report on that taskbar, I do not have an example of one here. Why don't I go ahead and put it on there? I think that dialog needs to be adjusted a little bit. Oh, there is no global taskbar in this environment. Okay, so I can't put it on there, but were I to do that, it essentially would make that same report available to all GoldMine users. Now, of course, it's only available if they have MasterMine, and that's a positive thing if what you're thinking is, hey, I want to make this report available, but I really only want it to be for my management team or only for certain users. Well, if they're the ones who have, you know, MasterMine reports, then, or excuse me, MasterMine license, they will be the only ones who can open that up. Carnegie, did I answer what you were saying?
That's the one.
Okay, great.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, so now the other thing has to do that I was about to get into is personalizing a report. So this is a report that covers the entire sales team, right? And for the sales manager, for the executive level, for various different, probably for the sales secretary as well, that's an important report to have out there. You will, and in some cases, you have a sales environment where you don't too much mind that the user, Rob, can see how many calls the other people have been making in a report. There's nothing terribly confidential about how many calls other people are making, and it's good to be able to compare yourself and know that you're either keeping up with the team or you're actually falling behind. But there are also situations where people say, well, look, I just want a report to go to Rob. I want him to be able to open it up, but I don't want him seeing who other people have been calling. I don't want to see him seeing other people's forecasts or whatever. Now, this isn't a forecast report, so that's no big deal, but each individual report can be individually honed down to show only information for one user. This is where we're going to get a little bit technical here, but bear with me here. So what we're going to start with is to actually modify the query that's behind this pivot table. So I'm going to pull up, and this is on the MM Tools toolbar here. You may or may not know that this is the way to actually get to the underlying query that's under a MasterMind report. MM Tools, Edit Query, brings up a nice dialog like this where you can directly modify the query that underlies the pivot table. This was generated, when you actually originally created this report, this was the query that was generated that's behind it. It's a little bit busy because there's a lot of stuff that we do to kind of clean up your data and make it a little bit more reportable along the way. But if you know a little bit about SQL, you might know, for example, that you could add to the where clause here to have this only include records for a particular user. Now, in MasterMind, there is actually if you don't have it yet, you will soon. There are some templates that you can use that, for example, allow you to choose a history report that only includes history for a particular user. So some of this is going to be a little more automatic in the application itself, but I wanted to show you this just sort of as an example. So we've got an existing report. We want to make this only work for Rob's data. We might go in here and say at the end of the where clause, so there's already a where clause here, so we're only adding to the logic, and ch.userid equals Rob. Perfectly acceptable change to our query here. It's going to reduce, of course, the amount of data that gets pulled in, which may be a very good thing, especially if you wait a long time for your history reports to refresh. If you make a change that allows you to actually get the information you need but pull much less of it out of the database, because if what I needed was only Rob's info but I'm pulling everything because that's what's most convenient, this might be an easy way to kind of get that down to a much more efficient query in addition to locking it down to just this one person. So make a change to the query itself, and there's many possible things you might think of to do there. Hit test. Oh, and apparently it did not like my syntax. What did I do wrong here?
No parentheses in front of CH user ID?
No, that shouldn't be an issue. ch.uch is the... Okay, now that puzzles me. User ID. Sometimes it helps if you if for some reason it looks right to you, but it just isn't performing right. You can copy it from another place and see if that works. No, still not working there. Boy, is that puzzling. Oh, you know what? I think actually this was more of a security issue. We really need to get this environment. I need to get this demo environment straightened out. Okay. Well, that would be. Let's see. Is this going to allow me to try this a slightly different way here? If for some reason the okay. So what we have here is a security situation where it's actually locked down so it will not do a data refresh. I'm not quite sure why it's locked down that way, but there it is. And so I've opened that up, and I think that's going to change the situation so that I can go ahead and make that change. Let's hope anyway. Okay. All right. So, and actually that sort of previews a little bit of what I was going to talk about here. So once you've made that change, another user who has Mastermind could theoretically do the same thing. They could go into the query like this and change that to some other user, and then you've kind of lost your security that you had by locking that user out of other people's data. The thing to do about that is to go into the security, as I was just pointing out here, and you can do things like, you probably wouldn't want to disable data refresh, but you might want to disable access to the pivot table settings. If you do that, actually you might do that, and maybe more importantly, disable access to the underlying query entirely. If you do that and then put a password on here, I'm going to put a simple one on here, and then hit save. Now you get to repeat it to make sure you got it right. Okay, so it's applied those settings, and now as a user, if I try to go in, well, actually, if I try to go into the back end of this at all, I won't see it because as a user, I've been deprived of the Tools toolbar in addition to all the other tools that are available for pivot tables. I can still use the pivoting. I can still move parts around, work within here, but I might, lay this out in some other useful fashion, save it, and then that's it. So the idea here is, with that security, the user would not be able to change the underlying query and so on. Now I'm going to go ahead and put the password back in here again, and I'm going to turn back on the pivot table settings here, just so you can see that really it's the disabling access to the underlying query that makes it so that you can't get so that you can't change the query itself. So now, if I were with that disabled, if I try and go over here to edit query, I'll just get a message. It says access to the underlying query has been disabled. So if you wanted to, if you were the user and you wanted to change that, you would actually have to go back here to the security, and you would have to know this password in order to unlock that. So that was that kind of is all I really wanted to cover in the technical parts of personalizing the report. Just the fact of getting into the query itself to make that change. Actually, I will make one other comment about it, because I had this when I was preparing this. I wanted to show you also in the query. So we'll open that up again and let you see the query again. In this case, we are narrowing this report down to show you only the calls made by Rob. That may not be, there's a big distinction here, and this often comes up when I'm doing report writing sessions, and that's why I wanted to bring it up here. That may not be the way you really want to show this. You may want to show the break this, or rather, let's say, isolate on who the sales rep is who's assigned to the records. You may have reports where you want to show not who actually made a call, but who is the sales rep at the contact level who is responsible for following up on all of these, so that you can actually see in your report, well, where are the ones that have not gotten a call? If you do this, you're only going to see the ones that actually have gotten a call, of course, because those are the ones that have a user ID in the of Rob in the history item. But if we're talking about a situation where there is no history item because there was no call, then you want to be doing a report that's based on who the sales rep is at the contact level. Okay, so I just wanted to mention that part of it. So hopefully there wouldn't be too much confusion, and it may even add a little bit of confusion. Sorry if it does. Okay, so let's take questions, and then if you've got any, and by the way, last time people came on with lots of questions. I really appreciate it, and I want to hear those, so we've allowed enough time at the end here to cover them. Please prepare your questions and type them into the question dialog here. If they apply to what I'm talking about right now, I'm happy to answer them. If they don't, then I'm still happy to answer them. I'll just do it a little bit, within a few minutes. Carnegie, are there any questions out there right now?
What is the setting have? Wait. Sorry, Andy.
I'm looking at it. What is the setting? Oh, to have the Mastermind report refresh on open. Okay, so that setting is right here under security, and still got the password on here now. It's right here, refresh on open. So what that setting does is that makes it so that when the workbook is opened, it refreshes automatically. If you don't have that turned on, then opening the workbook will not refresh it. It'll just show whatever it showed the last time somebody saved the workbook, and it won't refresh until you go up here and hit the actual refresh button in the taskbar. In the ribbon. Hope that answers the question. Is that all we have right now?
That's it right now.
Okay. So, but feel free, guys, to throw your questions up there, and they may be relevant to what we're talking about right now. They may be relevant to something else, and we'll just kind of sort through them. Okay, licensing. So I mentioned before there are different types of Mastermind license. Let me go back to the thing here. Okay, so license options. There are three types of master license, really two that are, and one that's a combination of licenses. So we have a create license. A Mastermind create license is able, a user with a create license is able to create reports at will. They get that initial create dialog that I used to, actually I guess I didn't show you this time, but you've all seen it, to create new original reports when they need them. If you get a create license, you get, some training, you get some support, so we can help you to do that stuff, but basically the expectation is on a moment's notice when you need a Mastermind report, or really what you don't need is a report, you need information, right? So on a moment's notice when you want to know X, where, who, what, for all the prospects in our database that we got in last year, how many of them have never been contacted? Make a Mastermind report that does that, and you should be able to whip one of those together in about 5 minutes. If you're not able to do it in 5 minutes, let us know, and we'll get online and show you how to do it. And of course, there may be some dipsy doodles, some specific things you want to know about that, and those are those are the kind of refinements that we help you out with support. So a create license can create new original reports. A share license has reports shared to them. It's a little bit confusing, I guess, because it suggests that you are the person doing the sharing. But a share license holder is somebody who they're the lowest level of Mastermind user, and basically reports can be put on their taskbars, or they can be launched from within the Mastermind launch dialog that must be created by somebody else. that is your sort of main division of security, so that if you want certain users to only have reports that are very constricted about what they can see, give them a share license and have your create user apply the security in the ways that we talked about. So those are the two main kinds of Mastermind license. Now there is this third, what we call a master license. That is basically a create user plus updater, plus, in other words, the ability to update GoldMine data from inside of Excel. We separated out the updater capability from the main reporting capability for pretty obvious reasons. People don't want everybody who creates reports to also be able to mass update their GoldMine data. So you actually have a separate license for Updater. But the key thing to know is, I think pretty much everybody on this call already has Mastermind in some configuration. If you are adding additional Mastermind reports, they actually cost a good deal less than your first seat did. I'm sorry, additional Mastermind licenses. So a create license costs $300. An additional share license after your first one costs $200. It's also possible to get an unlimited license for the whole company, so you can actually share reports with any of your GoldMine users, and make them available on that global taskbar, or make them available to selected users within the personal taskbars, but have them be basically make it so that you crack open GoldMine for everybody in the organization. It is a wonderful way, especially if you have the kind of business where you've got sort of dynamic workers, employees who think in terms of, how do I improve this business? And there are people who do that every day. How do I improve this business? How do I sort of entrepreneurially make things work better for myself and for others within the organization? This is a tool set that will allow them to do that kind of thing, and it doesn't cost very much to do it. And then finally, if you want to actually add Updater technically actually can be added either to create or share users. For the most part, it's used with create users because they tend to be the more empowered ones. Okay, so those are the additional license options. Are there any questions relating specifically, Carnegie, to what we talked about today?
No.
No, okay.
Not this time.
So why don't we go ahead with the drawing, because I really wanted to, my timing worked out pretty well here. I wanted the first 45 minutes for covering the set topic here. If we don't have any questions that come up, we'll release you before the end of the hour. Oh, we got more. Okay. Well, let's go ahead and do the drawing anyway.
And come back.
Yep. So
okay.
the drawing today, as usual, this is for a half-hour free support session. Typically, this is going to be with me or with Chris. You can use this for any purpose that you want to, just as you can use your Mastermind support, your Mastermind paid support for anything, report writing, data updating or massaging, analyzing something. If all you have is a question, bring me the question and we'll figure out what is the report or reports that will give you the answer that you need. System or process design would be sort of figuring out, well, how should we be coding things in GoldMine so that our reports tell us what we want to know, so we can manage things better. Or if you just want to use it for flat out training how to use Mastermind better, use it for any of those purposes. So with that, Carnegie, go ahead and draw our winner and
okay.
do the drum roll.
Our winner today is Jim Huggins.
Jim Huggins, congratulations, Jim. Look forward to working with you. And Carnegie, what are you going to do to make that happen?
I'm going to give him a call after this webinar.
Okay,
so
awesome.
I'll talk to you soon, Jim.
Expect that call. All right, so I want to thank everybody for taking the time to be with us today. I will still answer the questions, whatever outstanding questions we have in the dialogue. If you came loaded for bear the way you did last month, we'll be on for a little while here yet. If not, then great. I'll just put up the support numbers and contact info there. So what have you got, Carnegie?
How do we know if we have a create or master license?
Ooh, good question. Look at your license certificate. That would be the easiest thing. If you don't know, well, I mean, really, if you go to, if you run Mastermind and you hit the create dialog and it runs, you've got to create license. If it instead says, no, sorry, you've only got share, then you've got to share. You can't just look at the number and know what it is. We can, however, if you want to call us up, we can just compare the number that you have with the number in our database and tell you which version, which type it is.
And if you're, I know you're looking at the updater feature with the master license. So if you were to run one of your Mastermind reports and go to that Updater button on the, what is it, Mastermind drill down tab, when you're on a drill down and you hit Mastermind drill down, hit that Updater button, and it will let you know if you're in, if you want to demo it or if it's licensed. And if it demos it, you don't have a license. But of course,
that's on the updater part of it. So you drill down, as I just did, double-click on a number in a pivot table to drill down to the next sheet. Once you're on a drill down sheet, you have the Mastermind drill down menu, and there's where your updater is. And click it, and if it doesn't work or tells you you're not licensed, you'll know right away.
It doesn't mean that you don't have a license if nobody's using it. So it still might be good to give us a call and double check.
That is true.
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions?
That is it.
Oh, okay. Well, once again, thank you all very much for joining us today. We are happy to answer your further questions or see you next time a month from now. Appreciate you taking the time out of your day. And with that, I think Carnegie will say farewell.
Close up shop.
All right. Thanks,
Have
everybody.
a good one, guys. Bye.
Bye-bye.